Hello and welcome to Study with Sudhir. This is your digital classroom. I am T.S. Sudhir. We are going to be doing The Merchant of Venice Act 3 Scene 1 in this video lesson. Now this is an important scene, not just from the point of view of where it appears in the play, but also from the examination point of view. If you were to kind of count the 10 most important scenes from an examination point of view, Act 3 Scene 1 would definitely count. So I would advise you to kind of pay attention to it, to the explanation, and I always suggest to students that they take down notes as I speak, because one, it helps in better understanding. You can keep pausing the video and listening and taking down notes. Two, if you write down your own notes, it helps in revision later. You just need to look at the notes and the text. It will make your job that much more easier. I'm saying this from experience. Okay, so let's get started. This is an important scene and it takes place in a street in Venice. It kind of mirrors the first scene in Act 1, where it is Salanio and Salarino, the two people, the accomplices oblique friends of Antonio, who kind of start this entire play, right? So this is in a sense a mirror of that. But then it's also a mirror of Act 1 Scene 3, where Shylock is introduced into the play. So this is a scene which kind of presents a confrontation between these two friends of Antonio and Shylock. And then there is another character called Tubal, who is also a Jew like Shylock, who is also introduced into the play. There are certain passages which, as I said, are important from the examination point of view. So please do pay attention to this particular scene. A lot of interesting references, and I personally feel whenever Shylock is there on stage or in any scene, he kind of elevates the intensity part of Merchant of Venice. I hope you agree. I'm sure you would agree, because he's really the most interesting character in that sense, you know. And in today's world also there are lots of Shylocks in that sense who are out to harm the Antonios of the world. Okay, so as I said, this takes place in a street in Venice. Now Salanio says, what news on the Rialto? Rialto, as we have explained in earlier episodes of Study with Sudhir when we are dealing with the play, it refers to the stock exchange, the market exchange in Venice. Okay. Salarino says, why yet it lives there unchecked, that Antonio hath a ship of rich lading wrecked on the narrow seas. The good winds, I think they call the place, a very dangerous, flat and fatal, where the carcasses of many a tall ship lie buried, as they say, if my gossip report, to be an honest woman of her word. Now, a lot of interesting references. Mark this particular dialogue coming from Salarino, important from the exam point of view. Now, there is a bit of a sexist reference towards the end of this dialogue, which I will come to a little later. Carcasses essentially means the remains of the body, the skeleton, the bones kind of thing. Fatal means something, you know, associated with death and danger. Now, he is referring to the good winds. Now, the good winds sands near the mouth of the Thames River, and that has been known to be the scene, the spot of many a shipwreck, which means it's very difficult to kind of negotiate, navigate through those waters on the Thames River. Now, Rialto, as I mentioned, it is a stock exchange basically to do with the Chamber of Commerce, where all kinds of trade transactions take place, the business center in that sense of Venice. Now, Salarino is essentially informing Salanio that there is a report that one of Antonio's ships, remember all his ships had been on the seas, which is why it was causing the tension, and this is something which we hear being spoken about even in Act 1 Scene 1 by the same two people, that there is a ship that has been wrecked and it was carrying a lot of precious cargo, and where it has come, where it has been wrecked on these waters near the Goodwin Sands, because it is known as a very dangerous sandbank. Okay, and on that place there have been many a shipwreck which have taken place in the past. Now, you need to know a little bit about Goodwins. In case if this paragraph comes, it will really help you to know a little bit of a background about the Goodwin Sands. Now, this is basically near the mouth of the Thames River in England, and it is near the Kent County. Okay, it's off the coast of Kent. They extend for about 8 miles in length, and they were basically formed during the reign of William II, King William II in 1909, and the sea overflowed the estates of Earl Goodwin in the east of Kent, and that's how the name Goodwin was given to this sandbank. That's all you need to know as to why, what's the reference as far as the Goodwin banks are concerned. Now, he says that's where many a ship have been wrecked and their carcasses, as in their damaged parts, are still lying buried inside the waters. Now, the next line is important. If my gossip report to be an honest woman of her word. Now, gossip report is basically personifying gossip and rumor mongering and comparing it with a woman. Slightly sexist kind of a remark out here. Written by William Shakespeare, basically saying that it is the women who basically gossip, which is why he has personified gossip and rumor mongering as a female. Okay, so it says that Dame Rumor, also in the past, rumor was always referred to as a female as dame, dame as in D-A-M-E, as a lady, you know, as an old woman, as a Dame Rumor. So it says if the rumor, which is generally basically means fake news, pretty prevalent in today's times also, should prove to be correct this time, it means that Antonio's ships have come to grief in the Thames River. That's what he is trying to say. Now, he also wishes Salanio, he says, I would she were as lying a gossip in that ever napped ginger. Ginger is something jo adrak hota hai, if you keep chewing it becomes dry over a period of time. Napped ginger, or made her neighbors believe she wept for the death of a third husband. So he's kind of continuing with the same level of personification that Salarino spoke about. Salanio basically is wishing that Dame Rumor, continuing with the level of personification, should prove to be a major liar in this particular case, just like any other woman, any old woman who ever gossiped with the neighbors over the quality of her gingerbread cakes, or made neighbors believe that she was sincerely mourning the death of her third husband. So just look at the kind of extremes in which Shakespeare is painting women in general in the society of those times. So it's also some kind of a commentary, slightly a commentary being made by a male about the women of those times. So he says that, you know, it should be proved to be, she should be proved to be a liar in that case. But it is true, without any slips of prolixity or crossing the plain highway of talk, that the good Antonio, the honest Antonio, oh, that I had a title good enough to keep his name company. Okay, now slips of prolixity essentially means, you know, lapsing into, you know, long and boring speeches without actually making a very crisp point. And he goes on, and Salarino kind of interrupts him by saying, put a full stop, just stop talking. Basically, he's being blunt with him. So Salanio says, what says though? Why the end is he has lost a ship. So the sum and substance of this entire thing is that he has lost a ship. He as in Antonio. And it might prove the end of his losses. So Salarino says that I wish that Antonio does not suffer any more losses. Okay, if he has lost his ship, if that is true, I wish he does not suffer any more losses. Salanio says, let me say Amen betimes, lest the devil cross my prayer, for here he comes in the likeness of a Jew. Important line. Why? He says Amen. You generally say Amen if you basically want something to come true. Now Salarino, since he has said that I wish Antonio does not come to any more losses, it also shows that both Salanio and Salarino are actually good friends of Antonio. At least they are well-wishers of the merchant of Venice. He wants Amen, which basically means so be it, and he wants to say it quickly and add to Salarino's prayer before the devil can come, because the belief in those times, in Christian belief, was that if the devil comes, he would come and interrupt it, and then in that case what has been wished for will not come true. And he immediately says that there, see, the devil comes in the form of a Jew, which is Shylock. Okay, so that's an interesting thing, and also kind of continues with the theme of the Christians looking down upon Jews, which we have been seeing right from Act 1, and also something which we will see continuing during the trial scene in Act 4, Scene 1. Okay, now Shylock says, you knew none so well as you of my daughter's flight. So immediately Shylock is angry the moment these two guys ask him as to how you are doing. And daughter's flight means basically his daughter who has escaped. So that's what Shylock is referring to, basically fled, eloped. Now, Salarino, that's certain. I for my part knew the tailor that made the wings, she flew withal. Now that's an interesting kind of a comparison that Salarino is actually making in this particular case. Salarino is basically, while Shylock says that both of them know better than anyone else that his daughter has eloped, Salarino says that yes, he is acquainted, he knows, he is familiar with the tailor who actually stitched the clothes in which she ran away. Number one. Number two, the more metaphorical kind of explanation for this particular sentence is that the tailor is who? The tailor is Lorenzo, with who the daughter of Shylock has eloped. And he says that the tailor is Lorenzo who actually put the idea of elopement into his daughter's mind, and that's what he is meant by the tailor who made the wings, she flew with all. You know, basically with all is with, W-I-T-H. Salanio says, and Shylock for his own part knew the bird was fledged. Fledged means ready to fly, ready to take off, ready to leave the nest in which she was kind of growing up. That is Shylock's home. And then it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam. Dam as in leave the mother. Okay, complexion as in the nature, you know, just like comparing it to the birds, that when it is time for the little ones to kind of grow their wings, etc., when they learn to fly, they leave the nest and fly away, you know, the mother's nest. So basically Salanio telling Shylock that he is aware that his daughter was grown up like the young bird, making the comparison to bird, and able to fly, and therefore in a position to leave the nest of Shylock. And that is the natural disposition. So in that sense, Jessica, the daughter of Shylock, was old enough to run away with her lover, in this case Lorenzo. Okay, she's damned for it. Shylock is obviously extremely angry. Now here, damn is a different meaning from damn in the previous sentence used by Salanio. Damn meant leave the mother's nest, but damned here essentially means that, you know, he's almost cursing, you know, she'll be damned for it, you know, she'll be cursed for doing something like this. Okay, they're almost condemning her to go to hell. That is certain, if the devil may be her judge. Salarino says that if Jessica is going to be judged by the devil, and we already know who they refer to as the devil, then definitely she will be condemned to go to hell. If Shylock is the devil, then she will be going to hell. My own flesh and blood to rebel. So he's fuming. Shylock is fuming. He says that I can't get over the fact that my own flesh and blood, that is his daughter, rebelled against him, and he's obviously finding it extremely unthinkable and unbearable that his own flesh and blood revolted against him. There is more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory. Jet and ivory means jet, which is jet black, ivory, which is ivory, white ivory. So the difference between black and white is the difference between you and her, is what Salarino tells Shylock. So they are being very blunt and rude with Shylock. More between your bloods than there is between red wine and Rhenish. Now Rhenish is an expensive German wine, whereas red wine is a cheap common wine. So he says that just as the difference between red wine and Rhenish, that's the difference between your blood and Jessica's blood. But tell us, do you hear whether Antonio have had any loss at sea or no? So they tell him very clearly what they think of Shylock, and it's very obvious that they did not think highly of Shylock at all. Okay, and they see both Shylock and Jessica as complete contrast to each other. And then they ask, have you heard about Antonio? Obviously, it also shows a lot of concern on part of Salanio and Salarino as far as their friend Antonio is concerned. Shylock says, there I have had another bad match. So he is kind of continuing in the same vein. He has come in a bad mood and he says that that's been another one. I kind of loaned that money and that fellow has become a bankrupt, a prodigal. Prodigal means someone who spends his money, who dares scarce show his head on the Rialto. Okay, a beggar that was used to come so smug upon the mart, let him look to his bond. He was wont to call me usurer. Basically, saying that usurer is someone who deals in lending money at an unfair rate of interest. So basically he is saying that there he is, it was another one of his very bad deals that he entered into by lending that money to Antonio, right? Because he's a spendthrift, because he lends money without charging any interest, because he thinks that's a very unchristian thing to do, and now he's ashamed to appear on the stock exchange at the Rialto because of the manner in which he has completely mismanaged his financial affairs. Earlier he used to kind of dress very smartly, and he used to feel very proud about it, that used to come so smug upon the mart, smug as in someone who has a very condescending attitude towards other, basically someone who looks down upon others, basically someone who is very proud of himself. This is Shylock's impression of Antonio. It may or may not be true, but this is his perception and his impression about Antonio. He says that he used to come smartly dressed, but now he is a beggar, bhikari ban gaya hai, and he had better see that he fulfills the bond, that he has borrowed the money for Bassanio's sake. Earlier he used to call Shylock, let him look to his bond, he says. He was wont to call me a usurer. He used to call Shylock an cruel, vile moneylender, who used to charge money at an unfair rate of interest. Okay, but he was used to lend money for Christian courtesy, because Christians would not charge interest. So as a matter of Christian kindness, he was used to lend money without charging any interest, as opposed to Shylock, who would charge a high rate of interest. So Shylock says that he has to be now careful that he needs to redeem the bond on time. Otherwise, it's his pound of flesh that we already know about. And he keeps on emphasizing, if you see in this place, he has mentioned the word bond 3 times, almost within a few words of each other. So he's emphasizing on the word bond, making it very clear about his intentions that under no circumstances he is going to let go of Antonio from fulfilling the contract which has been signed on the bond. Okay. Now Salarino says, why I'm sure if you forfeit, you will not take his flesh. What's that good for? Now Salarino is trying to tell him that if he forfeit means he fails to pay you the money on time, in case it's true that his ships have kind of collapsed in the Goodwin sands. He says, you will not take his flesh, because what good it is for? I mean, what will you really do with this pound of flesh after all? So that's what Salarino is asking for. I mean, as to what use would that be of you? Now look at Shylock's reply, and this particular paragraph has come before in the examinations, and it also usually comes in pre-boards, etc. So please look at it carefully. To bait fish withal, if it feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. So he says, I can use it as a bait for fishing, that I can put that flesh and I can use that while I'm going fishing for the fish to kind of get attracted to it, as a bait to catch fish. I can use it. So it also shows in a very, what a lowly way he is actually thinking of Antonio, that he will use that pound of flesh as a bait to catch fish. Okay. If it feed nothing, even if that doesn't happen, it will feed my revenge. That for me, it will be a matter of seeking and extracting revenge on Antonio. He had disgraced me. He insulted me. He hindered me 500,000. That is, he cost me a loss of 500,000 ducats, the currency in Venice, by lending money free of cost. Laughed at my losses, he mocked at me, laughed at the losses that I was incurring because he was lending money gratis. Mocked at my gains. Whenever I would make money, he would poke fun at me. Scorned my nation, basically treating the Jew community with a lot of contempt and derision. Thwarted my bargains. Whenever I would try to strike a deal, he would kind of try to ensure that it did not go through. Cooled my friends, turned my friends against me. Heated my enemies, that incited my enemies against me. And what's his reason? That I am a Jew. So you see the amount of angst and anger and anguish that Shylock has vis-a-vis Antonio. This is something which we saw even in Act 1, Scene 3. So it is a continuation of pretty much the same sentiment and emotion, and it is something which we will see even during the trial scene. The entire amount of anger that he has against Antonio. He says all this he does only because I belong to the Jew community. And he says, doesn't a Jew have eyes? Doesn't a Jew have hands, organs, dimensions, senses, limbs, feelings and emotions as anyone else? Doesn't he eat the same food, hurt with the same weapons? Now food is an interesting thing, because earlier Shylock had said that Jews and Christians don't eat the same kind of food, which is why he said that I can do business with you, but I can never partake dinner with you. So there is a slight contradiction here when he says that fed with the same food. So obviously there is a difference, but here in his whole emotion of anger, as it were, he kind of forgets and he says that in a flow of words. Hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, that they kind of also take the same medicines, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. If you prick us, don't we bleed? If you kind of prick, doesn't blood come out of a Jew body? If you tickle us, don't we laugh? If you poison us, don't we die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If you do something wrong, wouldn't we take revenge? So basically saying that in terms of emotions, in terms of food, in terms of medicines, everything is very similar between Jews and Christians as two fellow human beings. If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should be his sufferance be by Christian example? Why revenge? The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. So basically trying to say that Jews are not different from Christians in any other way, okay, even in the manner in which revenge is taken. And he says that if Christian takes revenge instead of a Christian takes revenge instead of following the teachings of the Bible by Christian example. So therefore he wants to know that if the case is reversed, what a Jew should do if he also follows the Christian example of extracting revenge. So he says, I will also do so against Antonio in the most forcible manner. So this is a very important paragraph in Act 3, Scene 1. Gentlemen, my master Antonio is at his house and desires to speak with you both. So this is a servant announcing. Salarino says that, okay, we have been go. So they are about to make their exit when Tubal, who is another Jew, enters the scene, and Salanio makes a snide remark. He says, here comes another of the tribe, that whole contempt towards the Jew community. A third cannot be matched until the devil himself turns Jew. So Salanio basically is making this very sarcastic and very sharp remark, saying that here comes a third Jew, a second Jew, and he says that it will be very difficult to produce a third as vile as these two guys, that is Shylock and Tubal, unless Satan himself becomes a Jew and gives them company by becoming the third Jew. So Shylock asks Tubal, what's the news from Genoa? Have you found my daughter? So it means that he had kind of outsourced the job of finding Jessica to Tubal. He says, I often came where I did hear of her, but I did not find her. I heard a lot about her, where all she had gone, but I did not kind of get a chance to meet her or find her. Why there, a diamond gone, cost me. This is another important paragraph, so please mark it. Now, basically saying that Shylock had paid 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt. Frankfurt is the business center of Germany. It also shows the business ties between Venice, which is the business city where Shylock was trading, Antonio was trading, and Frankfurt in Germany. The curse never fell upon our nation till now. I never felt it till now. 2,000 ducats in that and other precious jewels. So basically saying that Shylock had paid 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt for the diamonds which had been stolen by Jessica. So he's basically saying that she has stolen the jewels. It's not something which she has gone with. Despite being his daughter, he has no kind of love lost for Jessica now that she has run away with the money. So for him, money matters the most, and he is kind of elevating a personal tragedy to the tragedy to the entire Jewish community. He says that the curse which was pronounced on the Jewish community, the Jewish nation, for their rejection of Jesus Christ never fell upon their race till now. Okay, he never felt it upon till now. 2,000 ducats in that and other precious jewel. My daughter were dead at my foot and the jewels in her ear. And when Tubal is basically telling Shylock that he has not been able to trace Jessica, so he says that the loss of the money and the jewels is a bigger injury, a bigger problem for him that has befallen the entire Jewish race. So he is elevating a personal problem to a problem for the entire Jewish community, and he says that this is Jessica's going away, it's like a curse, and he basically says that the entire Jewish community would be affected as a result of it. Okay, now what all has she stolen? I mean, he's kind of explaining it, we've already been told about the 2,000 ducats. She has basically taken also precious stones, a diamond and a turquoise, and many precious jewel, about which we will learn a little later also. Okay, so basically what he's so angry that he wishes that Jessica were dead, and she would be having the jewels in her ears, and if she was in her coffin, the ducats should be in her coffin. So basically saying that in some way he could lay his hands, if not on his daughter, he wishes that she were dead, but at least on the jewelry, because it would be in her ears, and the ducats would be in the coffin in which her body is lying. So it basically gives you a very clear glimpse and idea about Shylock's personality and his love for money. Okay. Then he says, no news of them. Why so? And I know what all has been spent in the search. The amount of money that he has spent in searching for his daughter. Why? Though loss upon loss. Basically saying that there has been just too much of a loss being incurred in trying to search for Jessica. The thief gone with so much. Now he is referring to her as a thief. And so much to find the thief, and no satisfaction, no revenge, nor no ill luck stirring, but what lights on my soldiers, no sighs but of my breathing, no tears but of my shedding. So basically saying that all these misfortunes are falling upon me one after the other, and I am the one who has to grieve about her, about this entire development, and there are no tears except the ones that I am shedding at this point in time. That's when Tubal decides that, oh, Shylock is getting very, very melancholy, he's getting very, very sad, and he's kind of working himself into a whole lot of grief. And Tubal is Shylock's friend. So he says that Antonio, as I heard, so he just wants to change the topic and give him some good news about Antonio's misfortune, thinking that that will make him feel a little better with himself. So the moment Tubal says that he has some news about Antonio, Shylock is very curious. What happened? What happened? Ill luck, ill luck. So look at the dialogue, the way it is phrased. What? It kind of conveys a sense of immense curiosity. Ill luck, ill luck. So he wants to hear that something bad has happened to Antonio. Hath an Argosy cast away coming from Tripolis. Argosy is a word which we learnt in Act 1, Scene 1. It basically refers to a merchant ship, and it has been cast away, meaning wrecked. What we heard from Salanio and Salarino earlier on in this particular scene. Tripolis is a port in Lebanon. Okay, all in that part of the continent, the Middle East basically. Shylock, I hear, I thank God. I thank God. Is it true? Is it true? So his reaction to Antonio's loss is by saying, I thank God, I thank God. So he's obviously feeling very happy, and he really wants it to come true, and he wants Tubal to kind of assure him that it is actually the truth. Tubal, I spoke with some of the sailors who escaped the wreck. Tubal tells him that I spoke to, so I've got it from the horse's mouth. I know it from very reliable sources that the ship had been wrecked. I thank thee, good Tubal, good news, haha, where in Genoa? Now, the moment he refers to Genoa, Tubal says, your daughter spent in Genoa, as I heard, one night 4 ducats. Okay, 4 ducats is essentially 80 ducats. So, just see now, suddenly Shylock's mood will again change, because he has now been told about something his daughter did, which he obviously does not approve of, because it involves expenditure of his hard-earned money. Okay. That thou stickest a dagger in me. He tells Tubal that you are almost sticking a knife into me. I shall never see my gold again. 4 ducats at a sitting. fourscore ducats at a sitting means on a single occasion spending as much as 80 ducats. So it's obviously the miserly Shylock is extremely upset with what Jessica has done. There came divers of Antonio's creditors in my company to Venice that swear he cannot choose but break. Now see Tubal. Tubal is a clever man. He again changes the subject topic back to Antonio. He says at the same place Antonio's creditors, that is people who had lent money to Antonio, also came, and they said that, and they swore that there is no way, there is no choice for Antonio except to go bankrupt. Okay, I will be very glad of it. I will plague him. You know, plague him means I will go after him. I will persecute him because he has to execute the bond. Okay, I will torture him. I am glad of it. You know, so it also shows the kind of mood swings of Shylock, reacting to each bit of news in a very different, completely 180 degrees different kind of manner. And that shows, this particular scene tells you a lot about Shylock. The intensity of his hatred for Antonio, the intensity of his hatred even for Jessica for only the manner. Otherwise he may love his daughter, but for the fact that she ran away with his money, he will never forgive her, so much so that he even wishes death upon her. So it shows you a lot about Shylock's character, which is why this particular scene is extremely important. One of them showed me a ring that he had of your daughter for a monkey. So he says that one of those guys at that particular place in Genoa actually showed me a ring which your daughter had given to him in exchange to buy a monkey. So, you know, shows the ridiculousness, and that will again anger Shylock so much that so much of money was given in exchange to buy a monkey. Okay, Shylock is obviously very angry because that particular ring is turquoise ring, you know, another one of the precious jewels. And what is more important, and this also shows a slightly different aspect of Shylock, and this is the only place where he talks about his late wife, his wife who is no more, and his wife's name was Leah, L-E-A-H, and he says that this was the engagement ring, turquoise diamond, which was used, which his wife Leah had given him. And therefore it is an agony for him to hear this. It's very painful for him to hear this, as he would have never parted for him even for an entire forest of monkeys. Why one monkey? For an entire forest of monkeys also, if they were to be given to him, he would not have parted with it. So it also shows, this one instance actually shows that he had an element of love also. So far we are only seeing the extreme intense hate that he has for different people, but here in this particular case, apart from earlier place where he says, I thank thee good Tubal, this is the only place where we see a slightly soft side to Shylock, where he talks about, you know, even for a forest full of monkeys, I would have never given the ring that my late wife Leah gave to me during the engagement ceremony. It also shows a very different aspect of Jessica, that she did not have any those kind of emotions, that she was willing to give away the engagement ring of her parents. So it kind of tells you about different people through this one particular piece of dialogue. But Antonio is certainly undone. Again Tubal comes to Antonio. Nay, that's true, that's very true. Go Tubal, fee me an officer, that is engage me an officer, bespeak him a fortnight before, I will have the heart of him. So he says, you book that officer, officer essentially is referring to a lawyer, a legal officer, you book his services by paying an advance fee, if he forfeit, and I will have the heart of him, basically saying that I will extract my pound of flesh and near his heart, basically killing Antonio in the bargain, in the process. Were he out of Venice, I can make what merchandise I will. Go Tubal and meet me at our synagogue. Synagogue essentially means the Jewish place of worship. Okay, it also shows that he is also very intensely involved with his religion and his community. So he says that I will meet you there, and he basically is asking him to do that job. So basically also tells you that he was in the habit of getting Tubal to do a lot of his work. Okay, so that is the position as of now where Act 3 Scene 1 ends. It tells you a lot about Shylock, which we have described and explained in detail through the play. It also tells you the cleverness of Tubal, you know, about how he kind of manipulates Shylock's different reactions, different sentiments, emotions, by kind of almost, he's kind of leading him on, and Shylock is almost following him like a lamb, reacting differently to different things that Tubal is telling him about. It also tells you about Salanio and Salarino at the beginning of the scene, and more importantly, it also gives you a glimpse into Jessica's character as seen through Shylock, her father. So these are the important elements that you need to remember. And as I said, this is an important scene both from the play point of view and also the examination point of view. We'll next go to Act 3 Scene 2, which is of course one of the most important scenes in this particular play, because it involves the casket scene and it involves Bassanio, the other suitor for Portia. Okay, so I'll see you in Act 3 Scene 2, but this is a scene which you should revise very, very thoroughly. Thank you very much for watching.